Why doesn't my child know how to read up to grade level?
Every day I walk around and I see children that even by the standards of American schools are dumb.
I really don't have a lot of faith in some of these kids that I teach.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. More and more kids are being given unfettered internet access from the moment they can hold a phone. Now it's no surprise that young minds are beginning to show the negative effects of being chronically online, and teachers are being forced to deal with the consequences.
I just went to my daughter's school. We had report card night. So they tell you about their grades, yada, yada, yada. We get in there. None of the second graders are at grade level. The charter school I'm attending is all paper and pen. The charter school my daughter used to go to was laptop. Incredible student. Pass. Flying colors. Went to this charter school. Paper, pen. Failing everything. They were like, well, we had to have them do an essay, and then like we do fill in the blanks, but they do not get a workbank, so they have to fill it out themselves. They have to spell everything themselves. The point I was trying to make is none of these kids are where they're supposed to be. And I'm not going to blame all of it on the laptops. I think it's partially that. But what is going on? Why is nobody on grade level? Why is everybody struggling? It can't be. We all have learning disabilities. Nobody can spell. Nobody can do essays. No, we can barely read. We're just having a crisis. What is going on?
My child is in the second grade and can't read. She said she couldn't read her math problem in class, and so she had to ask a friend to read it for her, and now I'm seeing that the reading is obviously going to everything else, and her last school absolutely failed so many freaking children, which is why we switched this year. And she just got her testing for the beginning of the year, and it shows that she literally needs reading intervention 5 days a week. I didn't even learn to read until I was in third grade because I had my own issues. How the fuck am I supposed to teach her how to read? And so she's 7 with a phone and she can't text or read the text, so you have to send voice memos. The reading epidemic is real. It's real. It is real.
I did not realize how bad the iPad kid epidemic was until yesterday. We've all heard of the issues with these kids that are being raised on iPads and the parents blaming teachers and not being hands-on in their academics. But when I tell you I was absolutely flabbergasted at the interaction that I had with a child yesterday, I just have no words for it. I'm a bartender at a resort, and this family came up to the bar to order their food. One of the kids, who's about 8 or 9 years old, asked what flavor of Dippin' Dots we had, so I handed her a menu. This way she could read the flavors, and I was going to continue helping the rest of the party. When I tell you that I handed her the menu and she looks at me dead in the eyes and goes, I can't read. I was left absolutely speechless for a few seconds. You're gonna tell me around second, third grade, she can't read? I truthfully did not believe what I was hearing, and that's just frightening.
Why doesn't my child know how to read up to grade level, right? So for one, we homeschool, and we don't have grades. We do not go by the grade level system that was created by who knows who, according to who knows what. I don't know. But studies show that children will naturally learn how to read around the ages of 8 and 10. Oh my God. That's so late, right? It's not. When you really think about it, it really makes no difference as to what age your child learns how to read, especially when they are learning how to read from a space of independence and curiosity and a self-driven need to know how to read. Because at that point, there's no need for force. There's no need for coercion or manipulation to get the child to read. You don't even need to teach them. My children are self-taught. Everything that they know, they have taught themselves with me as their guidance. We don't use workbooks. We don't use any type of curriculum. We don't do any of that. We learn through life.
Teaching a child how to read is not manipulation or coercion. A common theme I've noticed in all of these videos is that parents keep pushing the blame onto teachers and the school system for their children's poor performance in education. Honestly, I don't see how you could take such a hands-off approach to raising your own kids. It's my responsibility to instill in them the correct morals and values so that they have the tools to navigate life to the best of their ability. Shoving an iPad into their face just to keep them quiet is pathetic and lazy parenting.
This will not be my classroom after Friday. I'm actually leaving the profession. I am quitting. Well, actually, I did quit, but Friday is my last day. What I really want to talk about is how technology is ruining education. Every student in the county, I believe from 6th grade through 12th grade, gets their own county distributed iPad. Every kid gets an iPad for the school year. A lot of these kids don't know how to read because they have had things read to them, or they can click a button and have something read out loud to them. Their attention spans are waning because everything is high stimulation. They can just scroll, watch less than a minute. They can't sit still for very long. If I ask a child to handwrite something, even just a paragraph, 5 sentences, basic paragraph, they roll their eyes, they throw tantrums. I'm talking about high schoolers. I teach 10th grade now. They want to argue with me about it, and they want to say, why can't we just type it? Why can't we just type it? Well, it's because you'll go on another website, or you'll copy it, or use AI, you'll use ChatGPT. I understand that our world is going in a direction where AI is going to be more prevalent. That still doesn't take away that these are basic skills you need. And if you can't read, and if you don't care to read or learn the vocabulary or learn your context clues, you're never going to understand it, and therefore it's never going to mean anything to you, and you're never going to have real opinions. And I just don't think these kids even care. And I think that we need to cut off technology from these kids, probably until they go to college. Call me old-fashioned. I will be old-fashioned, but we are at the point where I really don't have a lot of faith in some of these kids that I teach.
When I tell you that these babies cannot read, they cannot write, and they cannot comprehend, I'm not being funny. I'm being dead serious. I have kids constantly asking me, how do I spell window? How do I spell important? How do I spell though? And they be serious. They're dead serious. I could ask them, who is the main character of your story? The story of 4-paragraph story we just read. Can't tell you. They don't know.
So when teachers are saying that students have terrible reading skills and just lack reading comprehension, this is what we're talking about, okay? This is a warm-up that one of my 9th grade students turned in. I asked them about a field trip that we took. I enjoyed the field trip. I like learning about, I don't know. And then at the end he says, I did not like walking on pier. I guess that's him saying the pier. I would go back. This is a 15-year-old. This is a different 9th grade student. Same class. He said, I ransom for a PhD of the water. We're not exaggerating. It is bad out here. This is ridiculous, okay?
Does anyone remember learning phonics when they were a kid? Apparently schools have moved away from that over the past decade and switched over to a whole language approach that encourages kids to guess words based on context and pictures rather than sounding them out. And there's reason to believe that this has contributed greatly to the increase in illiteracy among Gen Alpha and Gen Z.
The kids these days cannot read, and at risk of sounding like a boomer, it's becoming a noticeable problem. Every day, I encounter 12-year-olds who are barely literate. They cannot read, they cannot sound out words, they go by the pictures, it's insane. I've noticed that American elementary schools do not teach phonics anymore. There's this assumption that the children will just figure out what words and sounds look like based on the teacher reading aloud or by looking at the pictures. It's this sort of whole word or whole sentence meaning and word-based approach as opposed to a phonics-based approach. I worked at a wealthier, essentially private school for a while, and there was this little 6-year-old girl who every time I tried to get her to read with me, she would open a picture book, and the picture book would have, for example, a picture of a cowboy hat, and she would say to me that the page said, "This is a hat." And what the page actually said was, "This is what cowboys wear." So she had no idea what the word said. She was going off pictures and patterns, and she couldn't even sound out a 3-letter word for which there was no picture. It takes a lot of work to teach phonics, and I honestly think that's largely why people aren't doing it. And not teaching children phonics is billed as this progressive, creative, experimental approach. It's not progressive, creative, and experimental. It's just lazy. And every day I walk around and I see children that even by the standards of American schools are dumb. And it's not their fault. They're not inherently stupid. most of the time. It's just that they haven't been taught correctly, and nobody has enforced like a reasonable standard of education on them. And if you can't read at the age of 7-ish, you should not be allowed to progress to the next grade level, because you won't be able to do the work if you don't have the foundation.
It just seems like the school system is overcomplicating things for no reason. I don't understand how learning to read through context clues or pictures could be more beneficial than just learning to read by sounding the word out.
I am a first-year high school English teacher. This is definitely going to be my first and last year teaching. I was made very quickly aware of the fact that this is not the profession for me. It is absolutely astonishing and scary how your kids are 14, 15 years old and still do not have the proper reading skills. I'm talking about your everyday regular Joe Schmo from Kokomo kid who does not know how to read and write at the level that they should. And the problem is that they don't care to learn how to do those things correctly. I can't teach the class because your kid wants to be a disruption, because your kid wants to be on their phone, because your kid does not give a flying about their education. The problem really, yes, the problem is your kid. The problem is also you as a parent, but the problem is also the administration who continuously makes these stupid excuses for these kids' bad behavior. Why in the world are you still talking about COVID? Every time these kids act up, it's always, well, they spent 2 years in COVID. So did everybody else. At what point are we going to stop making these excuses for these kids? They are the problem. And the thing is, the teacher will always get blamed. Every single time. It's always the teacher's fault. The teacher can't manage their classroom well. The teacher doesn't have the patience. When are you going to start holding your kids accountable for their bad behavior? This is why all these teachers are leaving. Because they're tired of getting blamed for your kids' wrongdoing, for your lacking as a parent, for your lacking as an administration. My job as a teacher, it should just be to teach my curriculum. My job as a teacher should not be to be the therapist, to be the nurse, to be the parent. Like when teachers talk about the problem with pay, that's what they're talking about, because you're requiring all of us to do all the work of like 4 different careers, but only paying us for one. The districts are all afraid of the parents complaining. The administration is afraid of the parents complaining. The parents are afraid of the kids, and who's left to pick up the pieces? The educators, the teachers. Because if these kids fail, y'all are going to make it seem like, well, the teacher wasn't doing their job. It's the teacher's fault. No, it's your kid who came to my class, sat there, twiddled on his phone. She wanted to sit here and talk to this girl, do everything but what they're supposed to be asked. And I cannot get them to do their work because they don't care. And they know you're going to make excuses for them. And that's why they continue to do the same things that they do.
Here are some comments. Sub for a class of 2nd graders, majority didn't know how to read. One little girl said, I don't read, I just play YouTube on my iPad, when I asked if she read at home. In Canada, they no longer fail or hold back kids. Even if they show up 2 days all year, they pass them on to the next grade. I blame the system. There's no way this is true. 4th grade teacher here, nearly a third of my class can't read. Have asked about retention alternative placements and it's always a no. They'll all go to the 5th grade. As a high school educator, I can honestly say parent involvement is non-existent. Priorities have been totally misplaced.
Across every measure we have, the more kids use tech at school, the more their learning goes down. Our children are the first generation in the last century to be cognitively worse than we are. And that's just a nice way of saying dumber than we are. On every single cognitive measure, they perform worse than we do. Attention, memory, memory span, creative thinking, divergent thinking, critical thinking. They're lower across the general IQ. Now, this is fine. If generations were always up and down, you'd say, cool, things come and go. But we have been on a steady increase for over 100 years. Every generation outperforms their parents, and that's what we want. Every generation wants their kids to be healthier, happier, smarter than they are. Yeah. We are the first generation in history where that trend is now reversed.
The class divide of the future is going to be who can read and critically think and who cannot. Let me explain. What every educator on this app is talking about, and what every educator in the field is noticing, is a dramatic decline in basic critical reasoning skills and basic literacy skills among students. This is particularly pronounced among high school age students, where they're engaging with more complex material and can't grasp basic concepts or manage basic memory about those concepts. And what this is creating is a generation entering the workforce without basic comprehension skills that is going to make it very hard for them to keep and maintain any form of employment. On the inverse of this, we're seeing kids in more affluent families being not only pulled out of the public school system and sent to things like Montessori schools, but being pulled away from technology, not given access to anything more than, say, a TV or a video game station until they're a teenager. No tablets, no phones, things like that. And what they're doing to fill their time instead is the normal childhood stuff of playing outside, reading a book, coloring sheets, all of these things that seem like play but are actually building soft skills that make someone much better able to navigate the world around them as they get older. The gap is not going to be who can use AI and who cannot. The gap is going to be who can reason in a basic way and who cannot. And those that cannot will probably be left behind.
Well, folks, that's all I've got for you today. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.